Hello, I'm Matt Galloway, and this is the Current Podcast.
Justin Trudeau has let Canadians down. And Canadians are done with his endless disappointment and delay. Trudeau's Liberals can't deliver change. They are too weak and too selfish to stop Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives.
Jagmeet Singh and the New Democratic Party have decided to drop out of their deal with the Liberals. The NDP had been supporting the Liberal minority government since March 2022. The end of the deal leaves Trudeau and his party in limbo and means another election may be right around the corner. Joining me now are Stephanie Levitz, a reporter who covers Parliament Hill in Ottawa, and Ryan Tumilty is a parliamentary reporter for the National Post. Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Stephanie, I'll start with you. Why now? Why are we seeing him rip up the deal now?
I mean, the politically cynical answer is take a look at the polls, right? They're not showing any forward momentum for the New Democrats. It sort of ebbs and flows. And as we get on this road to the next election, the next scheduled election would have been October 2025. The NDP and Jagmeet Singh were going to have to find a way to distinguish themselves for the Liberals, to encourage people to vote New Democrat. That's very, very hard when every question coming at the New Democrats is about the Liberals and about this deal. They needed a way to differentiate themselves and get going on that. And there was definitely some internal frustration within the NDP that what was left in this deal to achieve. But of course, that opens up the question of why rip it up? Why not just sign a new one?
Do you think they actually will be able to differentiate themselves from that deal at this point?
I mean, it's difficult. A year is a long time in politics if we stick to the October 25 date for the election. If it comes any sooner, it's going to be a hard thing for Jagmeet Singh to sort of justify, well, okay, yes, you achieved things through this deal, and they did achieve things for Canadians. But what about all these other things? Now you say that the Liberals are weak. Now you say that they're selfish. But you voted with them again and again and again.
Mm-hmm. Ryan, Pierre Poilievre called on Jagmeet Singh to do exactly this, rip up the deal just a week ago. He's now calling it a stunt. What do the Conservatives actually think about what's going on here?
I think the Conservatives are waiting to see if the NDP is actually prepared to vote no confidence in the government, right? That's the real test here. This deal could have been ripped up at any point, but the real test is, do the NDP actually bring on an election, especially, as Steph quite rightly points out, while they're third place in the polls. I think, they were hoping to see if this moved things, if you could shake up the current political landscape, because we've been in this situation now for at least a year with the Conservative leader having a massive polling lead. And really nothing has changed. You've seen some parties go up or down a little here or there. But we've been in kind of a status quo, a holding pattern. And I think the NDP wanted to try shaking that up.
Do you worry, or do you think that the NDP looks as though it's capitulated to the Conservatives' request? Or is that how NDP voters will interpret this, do you think?
I think there's probably some danger of that, although the NDP have made great pains to point out that, the video was filmed well before Pierre Poilievre made his demands. And Pierre Poilievre made his demands in such a way that I'm not sure they would have been that receptive. He started out by calling him a sellout and accusing him of thinking only of his pension and not of his constituents. That was never going to be a particularly persuasive message. But certainly, it's something the NDP has to think about. I think that, again, they come back to this test, though, of confidence votes. And I think they'll face one pretty early because the Conservatives are going to ensure that happens. And after everything that Jagmeet Singh said about the Prime Minister, and the Liberals being tired and weak and, sellouts to corporate interests, I think it's going to be difficult for them to then vote for them.
A recent Nanos poll shows that 54% of Canadians supported or somewhat supported that NDP Liberal agreement. What do you think, Stephanie, that Jagmeet Singh has to gain by painting Justin Trudeau as someone who is supporting corporate greed? And how do you think he did in conveying that message yesterday?
So one of the benefits of this deal, as it relates to Jagmeet Singh, is that, again, he did achieve policies and programs and had them implemented, stronger laws around workers' rights, dental care, pharmacare, that it's not clear the Liberals ever would have moved on by themselves, right? So he does have something to show for it. And that's always been a difficult thing when you're not the governing party in the House, right? And where Canadians supported the deal, if I was thinking it through, it's that Canadians, by and large, like to see their politicians working together, would rather have everybody rowing in the same direction and trying to achieve what's best for the country. That's a net positive for democracy. And that's a benefit. So for Jagmeet Singh, he's got something now. He has a record. When you talk to the NDP, over the last several months, one of the things they'll often say, they've loved this deal because it's gotten them closer to power than they've probably ever been before. They now know how the sausage is made. They are in the room. They are achieving things for Canadians. They're learning about policy. They can take all of that and try and position themselves perhaps as an actual government. Hey, we know how to do this. Look what we did before. Wouldn't it be nice if Jagmeet Singh could communicate all of that to Canadians? Because in his press conference, he just couldn't really articulate the why now, what's next, what's going to happen. So all of that presumed leadership and governance that sort of was built into this deal seemed to a bit fall apart during that press conference.
And Ryan, do the NDP lose the credit for some of those things because they were working with the Liberals, and will it just be painted as a Liberal win and not an NDP win?
Yeah, and I think that's actually one of the dangers of having pulled out of the deal now. The Liberals can credibly say, even though a lot of these things were not on their platform in 2021, a lot of these things were definitely forced on them by the NDP. But the Liberals can now credibly say that even after the NDP stopped supporting us, we got these things done. And certainly I think that is their plan. Their plan is to say, 6 months from now, if they're still in power, they can say, we got pharmacare up and running. And if they're not still in power, they can say we would have gotten pharmacare up and running if not for the NDP turning its back on us. I think certainly the NDP have always struggled to take credit for programs in this supply and confidence deal. And I think this might actually make it a bit more challenging.
And we heard Stephanie just say that she thought the NDP is not doing a good job of reflecting that. And I'm curious how you thought Jagmeet Singh did in that press conference.
Yeah, I think the press conference was a struggle because it brings up a lot of questions that that are difficult to answer. The why now, and some of the difficult questions that about why they decided to bring the split and how he would govern, because of course that's harder than being in opposition. I will say, though, they did an impressive job of keeping this a secret, of rolling it out with this video. As much as I was annoyed that he wasn't taking reporter questions that day, by only rolling it out with that video, he made sure that he got his message across.
Yeah. Stephanie, yesterday, the Liberals' national campaign director, Jeremy Broadhurst, said he was stepping down. What kind of a blow is this now? He said it was because of family reasons, but the timing certainly leaves some questions. So what do you make of what happened and how that plays out for the Liberals?
Yeah, it is a blow. Jeremy Broadhurst is an old hand in the party. He's been a formidable campaign strategist and player for the Liberals, both in the campaign context and in a governance context. It lends more credence and more weight to this narrative that people are backing away from the Trudeau Liberals. People who've given their life to the Trudeau government, to its messaging, to keeping it in power, are now taking a look at the landscape and wondering, well, do I have it in me to do this again? Because the outcome is far from assured. And if you believe the polls, a lot of devoted Liberal partisans will say, the polls, the only poll that matters is election day. But the landscape doesn't look great. And you have to look at that and think, do I want to do this anymore? Do I want to keep going? And it's fair, I think, for a lot of folks to be like, you know what? No.
Mm-hmm. Pierre Poilievre's Conservatives, Ryan, are sort of the ones to I think, come up the middle here, of course, although they don't need to because they're far ahead in the polls. But what does this mean for the Conservatives to have the NDP and the Liberals kind of in this spat now?
I think for the Conservatives, it's what they've been hoping for, right? They have this 20-point lead in national polls, but a lead in national polls really isn't worth much. It doesn't work unless it holds on to until election day. And the Liberal strategy really is to wait as long as they can for this election, hoping to wait into next year when they believe that the economic circumstances of Canadians will be better, when some of those pocketbook issues will have gone away, when interest rates will have fallen, which they're already starting to do. So, the Liberal strategy was to delay this election until October of next year, hope that in that time Canadians take a second look at Pierre Poilievre, but that they also start feeling better about their own personal circumstances and perhaps less mad at the government for having created those personal circumstances. So, knowing that what Jagmeet Singh said yesterday, that an election is now more likely, is what the Conservatives have been hoping for.
Yeah, he did say that as he was repeatedly asked if there would be an earlier election, if they would force it. He said more likely. But Stephanie, what position would the NDP be in if there was an election in the fall?
I mean, the polls suggest a terrible one, right? And although it's worth noting that, time and time again, the Conservatives win majority governments when the New Democrats are strong. That's what they need, right? They need them to come after the sort of centrist or take some of the vote away. The Liberals come up the middle. The Conservatives come up the middle. And I know that in Conservative circles, there's been a lot of frustration sometimes about the fact that they attack the NDP because they think, no, we don't want that. We want a strong New Democratic Party. But now Pierre Poilievre is rewriting the rule book on a lot of that stuff. He's going after Jagmeet Singh's voters. I mean, we have by-elections coming up in a couple of weeks. One of them in an NDP-held riding in Manitoba, Elmwood-Transcona. The Conservatives are trying very, very hard to win that riding. It will be very interesting to see. And then that could set the table for what the implications are for the Conservatives farther down the line.
Stephanie and Ryan, I'm going to give you each 10 seconds to answer this, but will we see an election this fall? Stephanie?
Maybe.
Okay. Ryan, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I got the same thought, maybe. If we don't see an election this fall, though, it'll be awkward for Jagmeet Singh because after everything he said, voting to keep the government running is awkward, to put it mildly.
Okay. Ryan, Stephanie, thank you so much for this.
Thank you.
Stephanie Levitz is a reporter who covers Parliament Hill in Ottawa. Ryan Tumilty is a parliamentary reporter for the National Post.